Welcome back. In what feels like at least a bit of a win in the escalating cyber war, the Justice Department announced late yesterday that it had recovered most of the ransom Colonial Pipeline had to pay to hackers. The company's CEO, by the way, was on Capitol Hill this morning testifying before the Senate Homeland Security Committee. The CEO, Joseph Blunt, told lawmakers he went to authorities almost immediately after finding out about the attack last month. And while keeping the FBI informed, Colonial decided on its own to pay the $4.4 million ransom. The FBI was able to trace and seize the money from a Bitcoin account in Northern California. Blunt defended his decision to pay the hackers. Take a listen.
I made the decision to pay, and I made the decision to keep the information about the payment as confidential as possible. It was the hardest decision I've made in my 39 years in the energy industry, and I know how critical our pipeline is to the country, and I put the interests of the country first.
Now, Blunt's testimony comes, of course, as we've seen recent cyber attacks, not only on the Colonial Pipeline, but also on JBS, which is one of the country's largest meat providers, as well as multiple transportation agencies. And this morning, many of us woke up to find major websites like the New York Times and Amazon shut down. Now, that outage appears to be related to a cloud service company, which says it's fixed the problem. We don't know the root cause, and while we don't know what caused that, concern that it could be a cyber attack just shows you how on edge we all are right now about the capability of hackers around the world. So for more, joined by Kirsten Todd. She's the managing director of the Cyber Readiness Institute, who's also served on President Obama's National Cybersecurity Commission. And also with us is Juan Zarate. He's a former deputy national security advisor to President George W. Bush, and he's now an NBC News national security analyst. Kirsten, let me just start with, because I know your ears to the ground, what more are we learning about the outage this morning, and how much confidence do we have that this is basically a normal tech problem type of thing, not a good one, obviously, versus sabotage?
So I think everything that we're hearing right now, Chuck, is that it is just a normal tech type thing. They said that their service configuration disrupted their services, and they were able to get it back online in 50 minutes. I think the time from compromise, from outage to resurrection usually can be a strong indicator that it was something that happened internally. So it was just a tech issue that had a significant impact.
Well, that is a relief. So, Kirsten, let me start with this ransom. Let me start with ransom. I want to get both you and Juan on this issue. I had a divide on my Sunday show. I had a Mark Warner who wasn't ready to go there on banning ransom payments. I had Jennifer Granholm said if it was up to her, she would ban ransom payments. This ability to now claw it back in these wallets might be a game changer. But let me start with, what would the impact be if we banned ransom payments? Kirsten.
Well, I think banning ransom payments is a destination that we're certainly looking to get to, but we can't get there yet, because we have to have better resilience within our infrastructure to know that we have a safety net. So, for example, with Colonial Pipeline, had they not paid it, that pipeline would have gone down. But the issue is ransom is actually the symptom. Ransom is the tree in the forest. It's not the forest. And we've got to be doing a better job to make our systems more resilient, to ensure that our infrastructure is protected so that we're not getting to that place where we have to pay a ransom. But we've got to create that structure, that support. And this comes within government and industry working together to ensure that we've got basic security standards that are practical and reasonable and that are required.
Mm-hmm. You know, Juan, the clawing back of this money, it was interesting. When you read what the public reports about it, there's a lot of information I want to know more about. But it was basically as they were moving the cryptocurrency around, once they found it in sort of somewhere where a federal judge said, yes, it's legal to go in and grab it, go grab it. Do you believe this is a game changer now that the FBI has shown its ability that it can track crypto?
I think it is, Chuck, and I think what we're witnessing is ransomware sort of coming out into the open. This has unfortunately been business as usual for cyber criminals and actors holding data and systems hostage. We've known this has been an epidemic in the marketplace, attacking hospitals, health sector, retail sector. What you now have out in the open is the open battle space of cybersecurity playing out with ransomware. And what you've seen the FBI just do is the ability to track and trace using the very elements of the blockchain to be able to trace these transactions, the ability to actually go get the private key and to identify the addresses at play, and then to be able to seize. This is, 21st century cat and mouse with ransomware, cybersecurity, and cryptocurrency. And this is a game changer because it is something that can be done. Tracing can be done. There can be much greater public-private coordination, and there has to be more pressure internationally to do more to bring people to account. You can arrest hackers. We've done that to date, and it has to be a change of attitude to say, look, we're not going to accept this epidemic of ransomware that has so bedeviled now critical infrastructure, and we can't accept this as business as usual anymore.
Hey, Juan, it's an uncomfortable truth about crypto and these ransomware attacks is it does feel as if it wasn't for crypto, these ransomware attacks wouldn't be as successful.
Well, I think crypto, in particular Bitcoin, which is the preferred method of payment in the crypto domain, really has facilitated the transactions. But ransomware, the cyber attacks would be happening anyway, and the criminal actors would find ways of accessing the payment in some other form or fashion. What's really interesting here, Chuck, is as you look at the analysis, there are really these hotspots or these elements of the crypto system that congregate the bad actors, where they operate to find the malware and the ransomware to try to attack, as well as then ways to get payments out and into the hands of the criminals. And it's not just criminal actors, Chuck. Bear in mind the UN last year had the study that North Koreans profited by about $2 billion based on these cyber heists of a variety of sorts. So it's not just the existence of crypto, but it's the facility of cyber and cyber criminality that's allowing nefarious actors to profit across the globe.
You know, Colonial CEO Kirsten also reminded Congress that, okay, the pipeline's working, but this hack did long-term damage. I want to play what he said and get you to talk about that on the other side.
I think what a lot of people don't realize about cyber attacks and the repercussions of a cyber attack is it takes months and months and months, and in some cases what we've heard from other companies that have been impacted, years to restore your systems. Our focus that first week was to restore the critical systems that we needed on the IT side in order to safely and securely bring our pipeline system back up. The remediation is ongoing.
You know, what that sounds like to me, it's like when your home goes through a hurricane, you got water coming through the roof. You're like, let's get a blue tarp on. Let's stop the water coming in. Then we can start to assess the longer term. That sounds very. It feels like we're almost just as vulnerable right now as we were 2 weeks ago, and that Colonial Pipeline could get shut down, and in some ways maybe be set back worse. I mean, that was not very reassuring.
Well, remediation from a cyber attack is always a challenge, and I've got to tell you, Chuck, I'd have a lot more compassion if this incident didn't happen because basic things like multi-factor authentication and the use of a compromised password weren't the reason for the breach. So the hope here is that the government, and we know that the government is working closely with Colonial Pipeline to ensure that they are expedited in recovery and in remediation, and perhaps some of that money that's recovered can go back to the government for all the time that they've spent working with Colonial to get them to do the basics. I do want to go back to something that you said about the FBI, this investigation clawing back the money as a game changer, because we talk a lot about a whole of government approach. And, you know, essentially there's a new sheriff in town. This Department of Justice has said, we will use our capabilities and our authorities to go after our part of ransomware. And I really commend Lisa Monaco and the team there for what they've done. Lisa's background in terrorism, I think, is certainly going to play a role because she knows what it's like to go after criminal actors. So justice will do its part. Now we'll see CISA do its part, as it already has. And that's going to be very critical to creating a strong and resilient infrastructure and having that help as well with the remediation and the recovery. But the big lesson here is that there has to be accountability for what you are and are not doing in the private sector. And we have to see greater motivation and incentivizing to do the basics. We have physical standards when it comes to critical infrastructure, safety standards. Right. We have to have those security standards when it comes to the digital world.
And Juan, look, I assume the other upside of the FBI and the Justice Department proving it can claw back the ransom is that that in turn, I hope, convinces many a CEO, no matter the size of your company, hey, the FBI is there to help. They're not, don't worry, you get the sense they're all sort of fearful of such a PR problem that they never want to tell the public. But this, you would hope, encourages more businesses to cooperate with the government, unless we have to pass a law to do that.
I think that's the hope. And I think in the cyber domain, there has to be much greater collaboration between the private sector and the government. And that starts first and foremost with information sharing, but also collaborating when we get to a moment like this where a piece of the critical infrastructure is put at risk and is affecting the national economic security of the country. And so this has to be a wake-up call for CEOs to recognize, look, this could happen to our company. We have to have not just the preparation in place, but we have to be ready to cooperate with the government. And this also sends a signal to the bad guys, Chuck, that there can be a reaction. You may not profit from this, and it may send a signal that you want to stay away from the critical infrastructure if you're going to engage in these kinds of attacks, because the U.S. government, with its task force out of the DOJ and DHS, and with its resources with the private sector, will come after you and will not make this as profitable as you thought. So that's an important message here as well.
Yeah, in short term, it may only send them back to the smaller companies, but then that in turn perhaps is the beginning of hopefully making this a less profitable enterprise. Kirsten Todd, Juan Zarate, appreciate having both of your expert brains with us, so thank you.